everybody. You're listening to the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Billy Z.
I'm Justin Allen.
I'm Brian Pittard.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Matt Brossard.
And I promise everybody listening that this show will have a minimal amount of editing because it's going to be a fun one. And we're just going with it. So, Brian, why don't you tell what day this is?
What day this is?
It is National Drink Wine Day?
That's
Correct.
right. I've been drinking so much wine, I forgot what day it was.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Cheers indeed.
And most of us are on the wine wagon right now, it seems. Brian, since I brought you in there, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a Locateur red wine blend from California that was buy one, get one free at my local grocery store. This is not a cheap bottle of wine. However, it was buy one, get one free. So I am not exactly filled with the highest expectation. But so far, it has actually been really nice. It's not sweet, but it's not too dry either. It's a nice blend of everything.
Okay. And Matt, how about you?
I've got something from Argentina that my husband poured for me. I don't know the name of it, but it's deep and dark like my soul.
Anybody else apart from myself drinking wine? I think, Steve, you said you had a cider going there.
I've decided to forego wine altogether because I'm not a big wine guy. Sorry, International Drink Wine Day. But I do have my Wicked Grove hard cider that Jason picked up at the store today.
Okay, and Justin, how about you?
I actually have a Niagara, the last glass of it from one of the local vineyards around here, wineries around here.
Okay, do you know New Jersey actually has vineyards?
I believe it.
We
Pennsylvania does.
actually have some, and there's one place that does an elderberry wine. That is
and
pretty
that's good.
Awesome. Yeah. But I'm not drinking that. I am drinking a Muriel Vendimia Seleccionada Rioja. It's red wine from Spain, and I'm sure we got it either from the myriad of gifts we got for Christmas or from Trader Joe's. But I'm enjoying it so far. So
There's nothing wrong with Trader Joe's.
Oh,
wine
nothing at all.
selection.
The best wine I ever had from Trader Joe's was literally labeled cheap red wine.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. That was the label. That was the thing that, and a lot of their, a lot of the Australian wines they pull in are pretty good.
Yep.
If you ever
No,
got
they're
them.
great.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to talk about something else we enjoyed, and on the date that we're recording this, it is the 17th. Am I right? The 17th of February, which means this past weekend was dominated by Wade Wilson, the Crimson Comedian, the Regeneratin Degenerate, the Merc With The Mouth, Deadpool, pulling in $132 million, setting records and proving that an R-rated superhero-oriented film can work. And I just dread to think about what comes after because nothing's going to be as good as this. But it happened, and I'm looking at my strip of gentlemen here, and I think I'm going to point to Brian first because for some reason he always falls into that front spot. Brian, what did you think of the new Deadpool film starring Ryan Reynolds?
So I saw it in a relatively not packed but half full theater on Valentine's Day. It was a perfect date movie. I say that knowing full well that it's Deadpool, but the material that they brought from the comics, all of the Easter eggs, all of the meta commentary that came from other movies and the production and the fact that Ryan Reynolds was in it, all of it coalesced into a beautiful, simple sort of love story about two people who like to fuck and yet found a way through all of life's crazy shit to come back together and fuck some more. So it was a great date movie for Valentine's, and I loved it.
Okay, Steve, how about you? How did you feel about Deadpool?
It was a piece of shit. No, I loved it, and I got to go see it with Jason and a couple friends of ours, and I think from the group of us, I think there was just not one side that was not left splitting by the end. We were laughing like a bunch of hyenas through most of the movie. And I think the feeling was the same in the rest of the theater. Like Brian, I saw it in a relatively small house, so it was not a huge audience, but it was relatively sold out at that screening on Saturday morning, and it was just everybody was there and knew what they were going to get into. I think I only saw one person under the age of 18. Probably the parents knew what they were bringing their kid to go see. No, it was just fantastic. The amount of in-jokes, Easter eggs, little side spottings of different characters or items or things. I mean, we've got a helicarrier that looks like it probably just fell out of Winter Soldier. You've got Hydra Bob, but not Hydra Bob, just Bob. You've got
is that Bob or is that Weasel?
It's Bob.
That's
Weasel's
Bob.
Weasel's behind the bar.
Yeah. Oh, I'm thinking okay.
Yeah, Hydra Bob was the mercenary that he runs into towards the end of the fight.
The one.
And he's
that
like,
he
hey, how's the wife? How's the kids? All that.
I did not view that as Hydra Bob at all.
Well, it's just Bob.
Yeah, it's just Bob. Okay.
Because they couldn't do Hydra Bob and get away with it. But they were able to do a helicarrier and get away with it because it didn't have any shield markings on it. Because most of it was like blown to hell or rusted out. But just the little things. And, of course, all the self-referential humor. They talked about Ryan Reynolds consistently through this. Hugh Jackman and Wolverine were interchangeable. Just every little thing. There was that comment with Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead where they're taking him off and they're like, we have to take you to see Professor X, and he's like, oh, which one am I going to get, McAvoy or Stewart? And it's just so fun to see a movie like this that gets itself, that doesn't take itself seriously, but also knows the audience that's watching this has seen all the other big blockbuster, X-Men or Marvel Avengers movies, and even knows that Ryan Reynolds' last superhero movie was an absolute flop with Green Lantern. Even though I enjoyed it, but he clearly pokes fun at it there. But like Brian mentioned, it is at heart a bit of a romantic comedy. There's some sweet romance in there. Along with the kinky butt sex and and some fun stuff there. But just it ticks some of those romantic movie tropes. Even down to the dialogue. There's a couple scenes where they kind of draw the dialogue back to some cute little humorous stuff that they stories that they tell each other at the beginning between Vanessa and I think is it Morena Baccarin? Morena Baccarin.
Morena Baccarin.
I think
I have no idea how you pronounce it, but
she's Brazilian, so I'm sure she's used to hearing everybody say everything.
But she's lived in the States and she was like 6 or something. Yeah.
I mean, just the romantic comedy aspect of it was such a risk. I think that was a bigger risk than having an R-rated, superhero comedy where it's just screwball craziness and lots of people blowing up. Here's something where there's actually a love story. They actually try to shove in emotion and a fun couple that works, and I think it works really well. Like, I mean, it does make a great date movie. You laugh hysterically. You've got the super action. You've got the super nerdy references to everything. But then you've got a couple that you really care about. Mm-hmm. So fun stuff. I think it was just fantastic. And Bill, I think you mentioned it. I'm really terrified and excited. I'm terrified that movie studios will get the wrong impression and try to make everything an R-rated superhero movie and make them a whole bunch of crap. Or, I'm excited that this could open the gates for, other more risky superheroes, characters like Lobo, characters like Hitman, that might not have otherwise had this kind of, any kind of attention to them because they were a little bit too risky or too violent. Okay.
And again, when I was saying that, I wasn't talking about the properties themselves. I was talking about the execution. And
oh gosh, yeah, the execution is going to be that's.
Though it didn't hit for a while. I mean, look at all the substandard 300s that have been out there in the last few years. It's painful.
Hercules and then Hercules.
Yeah. Matt, you had a different movie experience. You went to see it midweek.
Yeah, I went on a Tuesday, which I was surprised to find out there's still cheap nights happening out there at movie theaters, and it was a madhouse at the theater I went to. It was one of the older theaters in town. I was very, very familiar with the theater, having worked across the street at the now defunct competing theater, It was super fun. I mean, I managed to get a seat. I was sitting way far left. People around me were all pissed off that it was so crowded and there were so few good seats left. But I found, a spot where I had good sight lines, and I enjoyed myself. The movie is, it's got its own bent sense of personality. I mean, part of what I liked about it is that it was just really doing its own thing. It vindicates Ryan Reynolds for being involved with some really unpopular comic book movie properties, and there were quite a few. I mean, he could poke some fun at Blade 3, he could poke some fun at Wolverine Origins, he could poke some fun at Green Lantern, and he does. I mean, there's Easter eggs throughout the film, pointing out that a lot of the time, what I perceive to be Ryan Reynolds' love for comics or love for whatever character he was playing just didn't get a chance to make it onto the screen because of a lot of interference from, studios and what their agendas were. So it's funny that this movie's theme is payback, because I feel like comic book fans got payback for every bad choice and fucking lame costume decision that's happened in these movies. And Ryan Reynolds comes out shining. Like, he's a lot of fun in this, and he manages to steer it on just like the knife's edge between super dorky, almost like full on parody of comic book movies, but still like just enough drama and just enough action to sort of produce this balanced movie experience where you're not really quite sure what genre you just watched, but it's good.
Okay, well, I'm really glad. That's the word. Oh boy, Whine. I'm really glad you mentioned that the movie has a voice and a vision of its own, because that's been one of the most frustrating things viewing in the press, where people are dying to make the equivalent. The closest one I saw come was Monty Python meets Quentin Tarantino, and even that's way out of the ballpark. It instills its own voice, and Steve said it's a movie that knows exactly what it needs to do and exactly what it is. And there really haven't been too many movies like this, with the degree of fourth wall break and self-parody without being a parody. And I really appreciated how inventive the film was. There were some moments I laughed my head off. The way he spells out Francis's name in that one sequence, I literally fell out of my seat. Don't want to spoil too much. I have one minor gripe, and since I'm talking with some other people on the call who are much bigger X-Men fans than I am, Colossus I couldn't fucking stand, because it was like Boris Badenov as Colossus. that was, I just couldn't, I was like, Deadpool, you'll join us and then we will fight Moose and Squirtle. I think that was the only element. And again, if you're going to work Colossus in that framework, this is the movie to do it. So it wasn't jarring, but it just seemed a little, that was the only element of the film that I thought was a little too much.
Well, I kept thinking that it was Deadpool, like it's all internal, like he's always talking
true.
to the camera.
You know what?
So
I wasn't thinking of
impression.
that. So that could be, like, his version of Colossus could be Boris Badenov.
Yeah,
and everybody else in the movie sort of had that filtered, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely filtered through his sense of sort of disapproval with, the conventional behavior of the X-Men, like he doesn't approve of them, he doesn't approve of their costumes, he doesn't like the way they act or talk, and so yes, Colossus was a bit of a caricature, but I'm sure that's in keeping with how like characters like that are portrayed in Deadpool's comics as well. And I actually really enjoyed the way that Colossus acted and looked. I mean, he's a good straight man. He is super huge and muscular, and the special effect is really cool looking when his facial features change and when he has an action sequence. So at first I was kind of like, oh, I don't know about this. It's not very much like the sort of Bryan Singer take on the character, but it grew on me, and I liked that take on Colossus by the end.
Right.
Yeah, and, you know, like you said, it's through sort of Deadpool's filter, but there are some writers out there who have taken the character of Colossus and just basically done the same thing, down to having all of the dialogue bubbles, reflect a over-the-top accent. You know, everything is "we have to do it." You know, all of that is written out. Whereas a lot of other writers don't do that. So Bendis doesn't do something like that. It's just, you know, it's written out without the, you know, the accent. But, clearly this is probably the best depiction of Colossus that we've had so far. And we've only seen him in, you know, briefly in 2 other movies. But, this is him actually in action as a relatively major character, you know, and I think that they chose a good way of doing it by portraying him 100% as CGI.
And I would also love an entire movie with Deadpool in a cab.
Yeah, that could be a series of web shorts.
And I love the scene where he's at waist level and he just reaches out and just grabs Colossus's junk, just like, what does it feel like? You know, and the line about, you know, your poor wife, like that's, there were so many times in this movie where Deadpool just does whatever you think he's not going to do that, but I wish he would. And it's like, no, wait, he is going to do that.
One of the most interesting reactions I thought came from my partner, Rob, who loved the movie. And then when we get home and he says, you have any Deadpool I can read? And I literally... I dropped it, whatever the hell I was holding. I literally did, because I just, you know, he only lasted 20 pages into Watchmen before he gave up. So, another bit of the Drunk Bill's back. Self-reverential bits was when I was also dying that part where he walks up to the mansion and says, God, we only ever see 2 mutants. You'd think we didn't have the budget for more. And it was a fairly small budget compared to the other films that have come out of Fox out of the X universe. Very small. 1/4 of Days of Future Past. So
they cut a bunch right towards the end of pre-production, and they had to go back and scramble to try to make it work. And it actually, one of the director, sorry, I forgot his name, said that it actually made it probably a stronger film because they had to really go back and cut stuff.
Yeah. They didn't let it go as sprawling as it could have been. I was reading the list of characters that they cut out. They cut out Taskmaster. They cut out Ajax, I think, was in it.
Ajax was...
No, Ajax, not Ajax.
Yeah.
Weapon X, sorry. Yeah, Weapon X slash... what's his other character? Garrison Kane? Yeah. They didn't have him in there, but they were planning on having him. And I think there were a couple other villains, too, that they had as sort of the backup henchmen, that they just decided to do away with those and kept Angel Dust instead, or Angel, as they call her here. So it was just it's really interesting how they could have packed it a lot more. With a whole bunch of other, possibly fun characters they could have used, but they would have been ultimately unnecessary because what they got was a much tighter movie, without a lot of the extra fluff that you put in to pad out these movies to 2.5, 3 hours long.
Mm-hmm.
Was Angel less angry Rosie O'Donnell?
Yes. Angel Dust, yes.
Yes. Ronda Rousey.
No, I thought that was what's her face from Haywire.
Oh no, yeah, that's right. It's what's her name?
Something Carino.
That chick.
She's awesome. If you haven't seen Haywire, she's one of my favorite action stars because she kicks the shit out of Channing Tatum. Not that Channing Tatum needs the shit beaten out of him, but she beats him up with a coffee mug. and it is so visceral. Like, you just have
What
to see
movie is this?
It's called Haywire. It's a Steven Soderbergh film about she's sort of a secret agent, and she gets screwed over by her superiors, and so she does this sort of like desperate escape / vengeance mission where she goes after Ewan McGregor and Benicio del Toro and Channing Tatum. It's great. She's really tough in it.
Never even heard of that, and I like Channing Tatum.
Oh, see it. It's great. It's one of the last Steven Soderbergh films before he started doing TV.
Okay.
Okay, Gina Carano is her name.
Gina Carano, that's
nice.
it.
There you go.
She's also really fun in the Fast and the Furious movies.
Okay.
Did she do? I know she did like MMA fighting. Has she done stunt work before? Did she do a lot of stunt work prior to this?
It even says here she performs her own stunts in Haywire.
Nice.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
And tying it to a previous episode, scores by David Holmes. Well, you'll have to listen to previous episodes when we talked about David Holmes to get that reference. But at this point in time, I'm going to bring in Justin because Justin has not seen the film. But what we wanted to do, since we are a comic book oriented podcast, was to give you, fair listeners, suggestions of Deadpool comics that we enjoyed. So Justin, I know you haven't had a chance to see the film yet, but you've read tons of comics. So what is your recommendation for a Deadpool comic?
Probably my all-time favorite Deadpool comic is Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe. And it's written by Kulin Bunn, and the artist, Dalibor Talajic. I'm hoping I got that right. And the premise is that the X-Men, Charles Xavier, realize that Deadpool has kind of gone way off the deep end. And they take him and institutionalize him. And they're hoping that this will help get him through his, the trauma going through his head and help normalize him so he can be a pillar of the X community and, do everything an X-Men should do. Well, what they don't take into account is that the doctor of the institution is actually Psycho Man in hiding. Now, if we long-time comic book readers realize Psycho Man is an old Fantastic Four villain, the one who likes to mess around with Susan Storm, make her Malice persona come out. So eventually, let's just say that Deadpool breaks through the conditioning and Psycho Man is his first victim, and it continues to go on from there. And after dispatching, the Fantastic Four, he raids Reed Richards' weapons locker and ends up killing the Watcher. I mean, we're talking, it goes through, and he is just constantly trying to figure out who the Watcher was talking to us, because, the Watcher is, always telling us the story. So anyway, if you're looking for a good, fun book, and you can, lots of Easter eggs, there's all sorts of characters in it, this is a great book for you. It's Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe.
Okay. Brian, how about you? What's one of your recommendations there?
Well, I want to recommend several, but I know that several of us have things that we're going to recommend more. But my favorite is got to be Uncanny X-Force from Rick Remender. But I think another one of us is very invested in that. So I will talk, in addition to that, about the Mark Waid written Deadpool book called just Deadpool. It was a 4-issue mini in 1994. I believe that was 2 years after they introduced Deadpool?
Deadpool was introduced in 91, I believe.
Oh, okay, so
and
3 years
then the first miniseries would have been 92, and I think this was 2 years after that. Yeah.
Okay, so Deadpool was still a fairly young character, had been barely scratched as a property, and certainly at that point was growing into what he is today. But I was going back. I was touched, if you will, by the recent excitement about Deadpool, to go back into my long boxes and find an issue or two of Deadpool's back from way back when I first started collecting comics in the 90s. And I actually found New Mutants 98 and have been trying to sell that. And I found as well in that same general area this 4-issue mini from Mark Waid. And Ian Churchill was the penciler, although he had assists, I believe, from Lee Weeks on one of the issues. And I think on the other issues, he had a different assistant. But the issue, the series was all about Deadpool teaming up with two characters that have just not been around much lately, Banshee and Siren, which if you're a longtime X-Men fan, of course you know were the, I believe they were, oh gosh, Irish?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh God,
Father-daughter.
I was like Scottish. Oh, that's not right. Irish, father-daughter, X-Men, sonic powers, crazy, cape-like, weird, almost like a flying bat sort of, or flying squirrel outfit, with the different colors. Really, characters that have not yet been reinvented in the last few years. Although I think they tried out Deadpool, or Banshee recently wasn't he one of the Apocalypse Horsemen?
Yes. Oh,
Yes. That was, I mean, God bless Rick Remender again in his X-Force run for doing that, but it didn't lead to anything. Anyway,
Uncanny Avengers.
Uncanny Avengers. I kept saying Uncanny X-Force, didn't I? Oh, because he did both, right? So yeah,
Yep.
Uncanny Avengers was where he did that. So this book, I will actually tell you that the pencils, when they're they evoke a very dynamic sort of style that was very popular in the early 90s. I think before the show we were talking about how it was sort of a derivative of Rob Liefeld, but honestly, it was a derivative of a lot of the Image artists. Like Ian Churchill was definitely doing his best to really sort of evoke that dynamic style, breaking out of the panels. You go back and you look at some of these pages, and some of them are traditional, like 6-panel shots, but others, you got your full page spreads, you got like different weird sort of breaking the panel, pages. It's very dynamic. It's, if you like Joe Madeira or any of the Image people, this art is very, very exaggerated, I think is the right word. But he fights Deadpool fights Black Tom, of course, a standard villain of the Banshee clan. They're all sort of related and incestuous, or not really, but And the Juggernaut shows up, of course, as he does, and there's actually even a character in there who I kept thinking was Cable, but it's not. But it looks like it could have been. Who's like this Interpol agent that Deadpool screwed over, and so of course he's out for revenge and yada yada yada. It's fun. It's a great 4-issue mini, and it gets Deadpool's voice. This is Mark Waid writing, back in the early 90s. It gets Deadpool's voice really solid. And if you were to just have watched the movie, this is not a bad issue or bad series to go back and check out. I didn't read The Great Circle, the one that preceded this. But I know Steve, I think, is going to talk about that. And they're both, I think, very good at evoking that early Merc with a Mouth that we all know and love, and have since been well expanded upon and made very ridiculous. So I really think it's neat to go back and see the evolution of Deadpool, and certainly having read New Mutants 98, it's a far cry from that to this.
I reread that as well. And holy guacamole, man!
Yep.
Fabian's become a much better writer since then. Oh my God!
Have you read his new Deadpool? Deadpool and Cable series?
No, I haven't. I remember you talking on the show about it, and that you really enjoyed it.
Very good.
I like Fabian as a writer. He didn't have the chops at that point, though. Whoa,
nope. I'm okay to part with that for some money, and I'm hoping right now it'll be a decent sum compared to what I paid for it, but we'll see.
Okay. Matt, why don't we throw it over to you? What would be your recommendation?
Well, first of all, I'm glad to hear that there's some stuff early on to check out, because one of the things I was thinking as I left the theater is that there's going to be a lot of people looking for Deadpool comics after this. And I think it's a really tough character to find a consistent, sort of jumping on point, because different writers have, either really exploited the comedy potential of Deadpool at the expense of doing anything that's sort of like in continuity. So, where do you start with Deadpool? So it's good to hear that some of the early stuff is worth checking out. Brian knows exactly what I'm going to talk about. And it's funny, my pick is sort of like the worst thing for somebody to be into if they liked the movie, because this is a take on the character that's a departure. So I love Rick Remender's Uncanny X-Force series, but I'll admit that it's deliberately trying to sort of reposition the character and reinvent the character a bit. And he is part of an ensemble, so it's not focused on him. But he is a highlight of the run. They find a way to Rick Remender finds a way to position him as a character that's got conscience in a group of people that are forced to do, terrible things. He counters a lot of the darkness of the series with his humor. And he's definitely flawed, but he's also sort of depicted as being somebody who's underestimated, and that's something that he can use to his advantage. And I love the way that he's depicted in the series. Plus, it's just a beautiful book. I mean, I've gone on and on about how much I like Asad Ribic, and this is also a great series to introduce yourself to Jerome Opeña, who does the interiors. And it's a great run. I mean, it gets a chance to sort of stay in its own continuity and avoid some of the crossovers that were going on throughout the years. And start to finish, you get like a nice self-enclosed, engaging, dramatic run for X-Force.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing I really liked in that series was Cyclops, Deadpool's relationship with Kid Apocalypse.
Yep.
Yeah, that was, you don't necessarily wouldn't necessarily go to Deadpool for a mentor type of figure, and somehow Remender really made that work. And I think some of the more touching moments were from that relationship.
Uncle Cluster.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Remender managed to make him sort of compatible with the X-Men in that run. And most of the time he's sort of like too much to include in a regular X-Men story. Which is kind of a shame, because I mean, when you think about how much happens with the X-Men and how little of it involves Deadpool, he's a weird character. He's sort of, a character you can't bring into a lot of regular X-Men stories without throwing off the tone.
Okay, well, we had mentioned the first Deadpool miniseries, and Steve, let's backtrack to you. You said that was the one you were going to explore.
Yeah, and it was called The Circle Chase, came out in 1993, so just a couple of years after he was introduced. And up to this point, he had basically just been a character floating around, in the orbit of X-Force and a few other, appearances here and there. But this gave him a chance to be his own main character. And of course, Fabian Nicieza did write this, so he, continued on the character and actually got to spotlight him here. And then I think Joe Madureira actually was the artist on this. So very 90s. Everything is a very, very 90s look. There is a lot of sort of, that Liefeld school of art. So a lot of characters have that very similar feel and look and style to them. But this miniseries pretty much sets up the backstory for Deadpool. You get a lot of the hints, as he's been popping up prior to this, but this kind of puts them in a little bit more context. You hear about his history with Department K, which was the the next iteration of the Weapon X program. A lot of the other characters do show up on this, so you do have, Kane arrives on the scene to fight out Deadpool a couple times in a few of the issues. You also have a character Slayback, which I guess was someone that he had fought with Cable at one point earlier in X-Force, and of course he just keeps coming back. But also we have more of the bromance of Black Tom and Juggernaut that you had mentioned, Brian, and I say bromance because it's very pronounced. Kane Marco and Black Tom seem to be besties in the most adorable way. One of my favorite scenes in this series was both of them in a commercial airplane in coach with Juggernaut in a business suit taking up 2 seats and looking hopelessly uncomfortable, but getting to sit next to his best buddy Tom, who Deadpool, of course, eventually ejects from a plane, and Juggernaut goes jumping out after him because he can't be too far away from his buddy. But it's ridiculous to the extreme, but it brings in a lot of these other characters that also appeared in the movie. So you have Weasel as a major character in here, helping Deadpool find some clues to a certain mercenary overlord's fortune. You also have his girlfriend Vanessa, who in the comics, and again, I never really cared much for Deadpool at all. In fact, I think the words that I used earlier today were I fucking hated Deadpool as a character. Vanessa, of course, being a mutant, she has the ability to change her shape and form, but you actually see flashbacks to their relationship, and you see that moment where Wade leaves her because he can't be with her anymore because of the cancer. This is where it's revealed that Deadpool's skin and appearance is just, lumpy and gross, and looks like Freddy Krueger has sex with an 80-year-old grandmother. This is the series where that comes out. And it's really interesting. It's interesting seeing this, and it's interesting having read this after seeing the movie and seeing how much they left in. So it is actually a very true telling in the film based on this origin of the character. And of course, they've modified it and changed it over the years because he's been around for 20 some odd years now. I recommend it if you want something that's fluffy and ridiculous, but the one thing that really gets me, and this is one of the reasons why I don't like Deadpool in the comics, is that anytime that he appears in a splash page, about 2/3 of the page are word bubbles of him just going off. And it's not always funny. The jokes miss more than they hit, and I don't know if that's just because Fabian was still new after only writing the character for 2 years, but if you discount all the parts of his dialogue, it's a fun read, which is kind of hard to say because this is the book that he stars in, and I can't stand all of the parts that he appears in.
Hey, Steve, is Vanessa supposed to be Copycat?
Yeah. She is Copycat, yes.
I thought so. So I was sort of waiting for that character to show up, and then I was really confused when the credits rolled, and we never did see Copycat.
Well, and it's interesting that they decided to cut that from the film, and I'm not sure if it was just a cost savings measure because, having her, change form or change appearance multiple times might be confusing for some audiences. But I think it's fine in the film that they made her not a mutant, or at least not now. Mm-hmm. Rather than her character here in the comics, it's much more obvious, and she has, she plays a major role in this and almost dies towards the end, protecting Wade. So you get to see a sense of their relationship, and they even talk about it here, how schmoopy it really was, because there's a big exchange where she's like, I loved you, but I don't love you anymore, and Wade has a heart, and he uses his healing factor to help her, and things like that. It's very. This is where they get the romance from that works so well in the movie. And that's the one thing I do have to say Fabian wrote pretty well.
Okay, I have a really geeky question that I have to ask people who are far better versed in X than I am. What is the X-Men's policy in terms of mutates as opposed to mutants?
Okay.
Are they welcome, or does it depend, or like a big character like Deadpool being welcome and some schlep like Black Goliath wouldn't?
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, it at that time, I mean, I'm not sure if it's changed that since then, but a mutate was basically a mutant that had been experimented on, like at Genosha was the big one. Where
that's because I understand that a mutant can be a mutate. I think
Right.
Beast is one of the best examples, but I came from the understanding that a mutate in the purest form, in the sense that Spider-Man is a mutate, was somebody that was born human and a mutation occurred.
See, I've never heard the term mutate applied to Spider-Man,
Okay.
so I don't know. But I mean, I would assume that. I mean, honestly, if they took in Marrow and Maggot, so I mean, if they're going to take those two in, they'll take anybody.
All right. Okay, I have a book to recommend, and there's a dog. Is that Havoc? Or is that one of Justin's?
That's my Chahui Hui's. Let me mute.
Is that Havoc? Are you kidding me?
I think we'd hear like the sound of humping if it was Havoc.
Oh, he depreciates that very much.
Oh, okay. Well, it's the wine. Well, for my Deadpool pick, I went with the out-and-out comedy. Because I know I knew some of the choices that you guys were going to present, and I decided to go way over the top with the comedic pick. And my pick is from the 2008 series, Deadpool number 49.1, Deadpool the Musical. And
Whoa.
it's a one issue done in one, like all of Marvel's .1s are. And the issue is structured as a musical. There are lyrics to most of the action that are set against songs that you can hum along to, like Noisy by Nature's OPP, Baby, Hit Me One More Time, Chocolate, what was that song, Chocolate Love, or
Chocolate Rain?
Chocolate Rain.
Oh.
And best of all, Last Caress by the Misfits. It's basically a day in the life of Deadpool. He goes to New York for a bit and encounters Spider-Man in some really, really funny parts. It's very short on story. It basically is Deadpool being a mercenary with a musical backing that's in your head. And it was written by Daniel Way, and the artist is John McCrae. And I think this series actually ended in the next issue and then went on to the Brian Posehn, Jerry Duggan period. At least that first series. I think are they the creative team on the current series too, or is that changed?
I don't think Posehn's still on there, but I think Duggan's still writing them.
So for a one issue diversion to get a nice flavor of how extreme Deadpool humor can be, I would recommend Deadpool the Musical, 49.1. And Matt, I was researching something when we brought up with Deadpool, where do you start? What do you recommend? I'm looking at the contents of Deadpool Classic Volume 1, and it looks like they did a really smart thing. Not just from a compilation standpoint, they have his first appearance from New Mutants number 98. They have the 2 miniseries that Brian and Steve talked about, but then they also present the first issue of the 1997 series, which really was the advent of the fourth wall breaking and what we kind of have come to know as Deadpool. And they include the first issue of that, and again, the creative team on that was Joe Kelly and Ed McGuinness. And I know some people on this call love Ed McGuinness, some don't. I'm definitely in the McGuinness camp, and I think that's as an economical introduction, I think that probably would work, and it's on sale at Comixology for $3.99.
Oh,
so
wow.
you have 8, 9, 10 issues for $3.99. So.
It's funny that X-Force is sort of left out of that, because that was my first exposure to Deadpool, was that, I think it's like X-Force 3, and he just shows up for like half an issue.
Yeah. So, we still got time. Anybody else have something they want to bring up? We don't have to stick to a format because God knows I'm not going to be able to with the looking at how much wine I've drunk at this point.
Well, I think there's some exciting news out of comics right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
DC. Rebirth. Admitting
Afterbirth?
past mistakes.
Afterbirth.
Not yet.
Yeah.
It looks pretty
Ew.
good. Come on.
Yeah. I'm
No, no.
I'm very excited at the structure of it. I'm a little nervous about that many titles and that many marginalized titles being bi-weekly, but I think it's going to be a step in the right direction. I think some people are going to be very happy. And I don't want to bring it up, but somebody really slammed Jeff Johns today, and it seems that with Jeff Johns' role as the chief creative officer, people do have to know that there were battles he lost. He was fervent in his desire to keep Superman and Lois Lane together. He was vociferous in his argument to keep the legacy of the Titans specifically together. And we didn't see that with New 52. We saw we saw a shakeup there, and it looks like they're paying fan service in a very nice way from my perspective. I don't know how anyone else feels.
No, I feel that too. I think, and I do hate to say that it's that the forums have given them so much flack over the past years, the past almost 5 years, that they decided, okay, well, we're just going to give in and put everything back the way it was. That's not the sense that I got from Johns. I think he was very, I'd say that he was very fair in his in what he put out there, that there were things that he really liked, and he talked about, used the Green Lantern analogy there from something, of course, that he did, where he took a lot of the classic elements that everybody really loved, and they wanted them back, and they missed them, but he brought it up to where they were now, or where DC was at that time, with Kyle Rayner and the state of the DC universe at that point. And I think by doing that, he's basically saying New 52 isn't going to just be kicked down to the curb, that all that stuff that you've been reading for the past 4.5 years means nothing, and that everything was just a waste.
Mm-hmm.
And we're putting everything back to the way it was. Which is just stupid.
It was Bobby Ewing in the shower. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's like, it was all a dream. But it's, they're bringing back the elements that worked really well, that people have wanted to get back. They want that feel, but still making it make sense, I think. And so, by having the past 4.5 years, those things mattered where it was important for it to matter. And then the other stuff like Pandora and all the other weird crap with Future's End, that just off it goes. That's not important. It was just a storyline, whatever. We're bringing back all the elements that you really enjoyed and keeping the ones that people also enjoyed. So Darkseid War's actually going to have an impact, I think. Mm-hmm. And he talks about that because that's going to be his last issue of Justice League, is issue number 50. Mm-hmm. And then he's off and doing whatever else. But I don't know. I've been looking at the list of books that they have. They've showed which ones are coming out in June, July, and later in the fall. It looks like a good lineup. It's definitely cut down, and I'm kind of missing some of the books that I'm really enjoying now that I know are good sellers. Mm-hmm. I'm not seeing Gotham Academy anywhere.
There is Gotham Academy second semester. It did survive.
It did survive? Okay,
yeah.
Good.
But there's no Omega Man, there's no Black Canary, there's no Midnighter, there's no Constantine. They should have called this.
There is Constantine.
There is. They actually,
yeah. They're calling it Hellblazer.
Oh, okay, Hellblazer. Okay,
yeah.
That explains it.
Yeah. So they are bringing some stuff back, which is good. And I didn't notice the Gotham Academy, but I'm glad that's still there. Mm-hmm. There are a couple surprises that I don't really understand why they exist, like Superwoman and Super Sons, whatever that
and
means.
Or Red Hood and the Outlaws. Like, can we please just stop making this try to happen? If even one of those characters has a hoodie on, I am not going anywhere near DC this year.
And I don't understand what the Superman might be. Right. I don't know, and
Superwoman too. That's another
Superwoman's
plus the new Supergirl series. So instead of everything bat, it looks like
everything's
there's gonna be a whole lot of S there.
Well, at least I know that Black Canary is going to be rolled into Batgirl and the Birds of Prey. That is one good thing, I guess. But unfortunately, unless it's Cameron and Chu on that one, I don't know how I'd feel about it.
We also have to say that there haven't been any official teams announced, correct? Some of the exclusives have been announced, like Tom King and for me, a huge surprise in Sam Humphries becoming DC exclusives. And that exclusivity is something that hasn't been really part of DC's makeup for the last 3.5, 4 years.
Did you guys listen to Tom King's interview on Word Balloon?
No.
By any chance? It is worth checking out because Tom King is one of these guys who comes out of industry. Like, he was a CIA analyst for years. He has quite the background in military and espionage, sort of. He's got a book called Sheriff of Babylon. That's excellent in terms of, like, a realistic is probably overstating it, but a very informed view of that world. Anyway, Tom King is killing it on books like Grayson and The Vision and all that. And his interview was with John Centris prior to this announcement, and he, I think, legitimately made it sound like he really could have just existed in both worlds, and quite happily. But the fact that DC scored him as an exclusive, that's a huge win, I think, for him and for DC, because he is definitely one of these up and coming talents. Same thing with Sam Humphries, who, I have loved since his indie Image book he did that was about, I
you can say it. If you can't say it on this show, you can't say it anywhere.
It was about bestiality to a point. I forgot what it was called.
Our Love is Real.
Our Love is Real.
Thank you.
A great book to check out because it's one issue. That's all you need to. That's all it is.
Plus, it's
book, not a huge investment to read, and it's an amazingly inventive and brave book.
The book he did about the Incans, it's called Sacrifice, I think. That was an excellent Image indie comic as well, and I'm sure a lot of people have not heard about it. But his Marvel stuff, I feel like he had such potential and just got paired with either the wrong artist or just got some kind of editorial mandate that just did not go well for him. And so the fact that he's been added to this roster, I mean, DC is definitely showing that they're really committed to finding good talent and actually securing them for them. So this Rebirth effort, I think like you guys said, Jeff Johns has finally sort of won sort of certain arguments in the house, in the creative, with him and DiDio and Jim Lee and whoever else. And this could be what the New 52 should have been, which is a real relaunch, but not, complete step backwards and total complete change, but making the DC universe coherent and bringing in the legacy elements that we know they're going to do with JSA and other books. So this is very exciting news for me.
Right. So it'll be also interesting to see what we have beyond this, because Justin, you had mentioned that you were upset not seeing a Legion title in there.
Well, I'm not upset. I mean,
yeah. And at the same token, the Legion were part of the reel that Johns had shown, so possibly they're coming, just not yet.
I'm willing to bide my time as long as and same thing with JSA. Eventually we will see a title with these characters in it. I'm willing to wait 6 months, a year extra later if we need to, if it's done right.
Amen.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think there's some interesting titles. I know Earth 2 is one of the titles that they're bringing into the fall. Now, if that's going to be the JSA title with the old school versions of those Earth 2 characters, or if it's going to be kind of a continuation of what's going on with the Earth 2 title now that I've been reading, but I don't think that it's one of their top titles at this point.
It still sells relatively well, though, compared to other books. So, who knows?
But I
really think they messed that title up with the other planet that they retrofitted as another Earth, and
they had to do something.
The Future's End sequence was so bleak.
Yeah,
And
they had to
it
do
just-
something after they backed themselves into that corner.
Yeah.
There was nothing they could do. And actually, it wasn't really Future's End's fault. It's the fact that Darkseid came and completely destroyed the planet. I mean, there's nothing left for them to
After
do.
he'd done it like 3 years before.
Yeah, so
let's
this
just do it
time,
again.
It was
Let's just do it
worse.
again.
You had Superman now, but I think, Justin, I think we'll definitely see Legion pop up in some of these books, probably prior to them getting their own title. If they're going to be drawing back from elements of the past, maybe Supergirl is going to have Legion in them. Maybe Batman Beyond might end up with Legion in that title. We're not sure what kind of Batman Beyond it's going to be. Is it going to be Terry?
I hope so. His brother, that Tim Drake thing just doesn't work.
Or through
It
Tim
doesn't
Drake.
work.
It could be a lot of things, and I think that it gives them the opportunity to play with it. I like that.
So,
and we've got our bi-monthly Harley Quinn.
Yeah. Wow. What do you know? More Harley Quinn. God.
Imagine that.
I have to say that she was the most compelling part about seeing the trailer for Suicide Squad at Deadpool. She has that whole scene where she's in the prison yard and she's trying to intimidate all the guys around her, and she's whispering to herself like, "Oh, should we kill them all?" And then she goes, "Haha, just kidding. That's not what the voices said." And I kind of, for a moment there, I was like, I kind of want to see what's going on with Margot Robbie. She's kind of cool.
Yeah. I hope they don't do some reshoots and all of a sudden Suicide Squad is an R-rated film. I mean, that would be weird. But I don't think it has a rating yet.
Well, I think DC is very firm in its PG-13 commitment. They've made that very clear.
Wow. You can have bleak as hell movies, but they're all PG-13, just like all these friggin' horror movies that are made for 12-year-old girls.
Well, I don't
exactly.
think that the Suicide Squad's going to be as bleak as anything else. I think it's going to probably be fun, as compared to Batman v Superman, which is probably not going to be a super fun movie.
Fun.
I think it'll be very enjoyable, but probably in that like heavy gravitas kind of way. Whereas Suicide Squad is light, fluffy, and lots of super violence, but mixed with cheeky sides and humor, because I think they're really trying to position Harley Quinn as one of the main figures in that completely, like having her be very front and center in everything, not just in the advertising, probably in the way the movie's edited.
It has been proven time and time again, too much of anything is too much, and it's never a good thing. So.
Well, somehow I enjoyed Deadpool, and they've just been killing the fuck out of that character all over Marvel for the past several years. So, ugh. That was one character I was like, why are they giving them a movie? Why is Ryan Reynolds like him so much?
Oh, just wait until Marvel starts putting him in the Avengers and the Fantastic Four and the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Well, it's already settled my Spider-Gwen, so I don't know what else they can.
With the Gwenpool?
Yes. Like I didn't read it though, and I'm sure it was probably cute, and they did some fun stuff with it. But seriously, come on, leave something untouched.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the way it is, baby.
People buy it, and so they put them in.
I am so ill-equipped to host tonight. Sorry.
Aww. How much did you drink? I just finished my whole bottle.
I finished my whole bottle.
All right, good job.
Yeah, 750 milliliters.
No.
You bunch of lushes.
Oh, shut up.
I've
Cider,
just got a slight
bitch.
buzz. I'm not even that bad, but,
I only had a little something to eat for dinner. I should have had dinner before this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Plus, I haven't been drinking that much. I drank a little bit last night. My friend, for his birthday, his wife and kids gave him stand-up comedy lessons. And he performed. Their graduation is a performance in a club.
That's cool.
Yeah, he availed himself pretty well. He was certainly the most confident of the people up there. And there's another woman who was, you just could see, just from her demeanor, even before she took to the mic, she's just a naturally funny person. The rest of it was agony, though. Oh my god. It was rough. It was rough, but I don't know if I'd have that in me to attempt stand up. You know, I can sing on a stage, I can act, you know, I can MC, but that's a whole other set of crazy wheels.
It is, because I mean, you can have the exact same set, and it totally depends on the people who are sitting in front of you.
Mhm.
I mean, you can have a set of jokes that were fantastic and everybody laughed, and then the very next night, nobody, it's like crickets chirping. I used to do that when I was, in my 20s. We used to have a Showtime comedy theater. Did they have those out in New York, New Jersey?
I've never heard of any.
Yeah, it was, Showtime had, like,
That makes it sound like an adult
would do
Chuck E.
these, like,
Cheese.
essentially, yeah.
Showtime, the cable channel.
Yeah, Showtime, the cable
Okay.
channel. Yeah, yeah, it was essentially that. Yeah, it was the comedy club, and I did it maybe 4 or 5 times, and I enjoyed it. But there were some nights where it was just like, oh my God, you know, and a lot of it, if you have somebody great starting off, the rest of the night everybody's laughing. If you've got that one person who can't get anybody to laugh at the very beginning, you're screwed.
Maybe on a bet for a lot of money, I could do it, but I don't know. Have you guys ever seen comics live? I've been to very few live comedy shows.
I went to a Laugh Factory with Steve McIsaac and saw Andre Kelly, and the whole experience was amazing. I'd never been to a comedy club before, and I think it only took one drink. And when it came to my table, like, I couldn't believe how strong it was. And then I realized that the point of the alcohol is to just get the whole crowd, like, ready to laugh at the drop of a hat. But the comedy routine was excellent too. I mean, I frequently refer to the jokes that I heard at Andre Kelly's act because they were so funny. They were so good. He's a great comedian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went to see the husband of a woman I did a play with at Caroline's in New York, and it was one of these. It wasn't an open mic. It was it was like a regular bill, and Jim Gaffigan was the headliner, or like a surprise headliner, and that doesn't connect with me. He just didn't connect with me. But what?
Really? See, I think he's cute.
I love Jim Gaffigan.
Was he blonde and bald?
He does not connect.
Yeah, that's great.
Just didn't connect, and certainly not that night with me.
Well,
and I think the only comedian I've seen in an actual theater was Kathy Griffin.
That could be fun.
Yeah, she made me absolutely blush.
I really want to just, like, kidnap what's his face, Segura.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Tom Segura?
Yeah, Tom Segura. Look out.
Tom Segura.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny because, like, I mean, I've seen Sandra Bernhard twice. Once was fantastic, and the second time, basically, we left because her ticket sales were so, like, only half the theater was there, and she took that out on the people who actually did show up. And, I mean, calling us, pansies and assholes, and we should have brought our faggot friends, and, I mean, we were up and leaving. We couldn't handle it.
No.
And, I was down in Clearwater. Margaret Cho's great. If you ever get a chance to see Margaret
I've seen
Cho,
Margaret
she's
Cho as
fantastic.
part of concerts. Like, what the hell was Cyndi Lauper's thing? The
True Colors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She was actually great. I've seen her in really big theater venues, in Montreal and in Connecticut. But I really, really probably enjoyed her the most when I saw her at a small local comedy club here. She had Selene actually open for her, who was her friend who was in the reality show that she had. Selene opened, and Margaret Cho was actually running some of the material that she was going to have in her next special. And it was just really fun because it was so intimate. We were so close to her, and it was a small enough club that you really kind of got a good feel. And of course it was filled with the gays, so she had a great built-in audience. But it was also relatively diverse as well. You had a lot of other people who probably only kind of knew of her, but they were, there was good energy there. So you really, sometimes it depends on the club, sometimes it depends on the crowd.
Yeah.
If you guys ever have a chance to see Varla Jean Merman perform, drag queen, but like, it's not quite stand up, but it's like cabaret theater.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very funny, and she's absolutely worth. And of course, Bianca Del Rio, absolutely in a similar vein, drag queen, but stand up comedian, bar none, insult comic. She was fabulous too. So both highly recommended. If they're coming through your local venues, you've got to check them out.
Yeah. I wasn't counting necessarily cabaret acts, but two that I have rolled on the floor laughing. And now they're back, though the ticket prices in New York are insane. Kiki and Herb. I was at what was supposed to be the farewell show at Carnegie Hall, and then they just kept going for 2.5, 3 years. And then if she did have this is much more of a New York thing, but she did recently have a Comedy Central special, Bridget Everett. Have you guys ever heard of her?
No.
Okay.
No.
I guess it's a no. If you seek out her Comedy Central special, it's okay. It's not quite the live show. And she's a very big woman in many ways. You know, she's about 6'1", 6'2", I guess. And, stuff you just don't repeat in good company. And on top of that, an absolutely amazing singer. I mean, she did this version of Someone Saved My Life Tonight, the Elton John song, that all of us who went to see it were just, our entire party were, just bawling because she dedicated it to her sister who died of a drug overdose and all that stuff. But she's somebody who's really hard to describe, but you'd never forget her if you saw her. I think I'm due to see Coco Peru. That's somebody I've never seen live.
You've got to. I mean, she'll be here
awesome.
in June at Parliament House, and
Yeah.
she's like, I love Girls Will Be Girls, and I love all her recent YouTube videos. Definitely worth checking.
That's the 3-person thing, right?
Yes, it's her, Varla, and Jack Plotnick.
Yeah, that's playing at Gramercy, I think just before you. I think it's like late May or something.
Oh, okay.
But she usually does like 1 or 2 shows at Birdland in New York. That's usually an annual thing. And Rob really likes Russell Peters.
He's the only one.
Yeah. You've probably had to deal with him for a while, huh, man? I mean, he's probably been in the Canadian mindset for a while, right?
I get a little too much of him, and pretty much all of the Canadian comics. None of them are doing it for me.
Yeah.
I prefer whatever I can find on Netflix. Lately, all the stand-up stuff on Netflix is really fun.
The Tom guy, I haven't checked him out. He's been in the show for a bit.
Yeah, you will love him.
He's very likable, and his
you
comedies.
Can even turn off the sound.
His comedy's just dorky enough and just crass enough, it's a good blend.
Yeah. Oh, there was a comedy show I saw that I forgot. The Stephanie Miller Sexy Liberal with John Fugelsang and Hal Sparks and Aisha Tyler and Stephanie.
Oh, I love Aisha. She's hilarious.
Yeah, she's awesome.
She is awesome.
She's one of my favorite guests from Talking Dead, too.
Mm-hmm.
She's a hell of a podcaster. Her podcast, her interview is amazing.
The crossover episode that she did with Kevin Smith. Have you ever heard that?
No, I need to see that.
Oh my God. It's just like two people who are just unabashed geeks. And just going off on. I mean, if you want a tangent show, holy shit.
I love it.
And plus, she also goes through her history as a comedian, how she got started, and that's really interesting because there's things about doing the shows for free, just to get a foothold in a certain market and stuff, things you don't think about of people starting out, and just how hard they work, but also how many opportunities they have aren't open to things like rock bands. You can get on a bill of 6 people and do it 7 blocks away the next night. It's a really good crossover. It starts on Smodcast and then goes to Aisha's, I think, or vice versa. But it was a couple of years ago. I want to say it was like 3 years ago. But it's definitely worth checking out. You guys want to wrap this one up, or you have anything else you want to get off your chest?
Well, this is a follow-up from last week. you guys were talking about Manhattan Projects, and I just slammed Volume 1 today. Holy fucking shit, that book is amazing.
I'm glad you liked it.
And I feel like a dirty bastard for liking a book that is basically full of genocidal maniacs, but it is so bent, and I am just the right amount of bent to, like, fit, like, 2 jigsaw puzzle pieces, like, and, oh my goodness, I am so ready to just read through, every volume of that until I catch up with wherever they're at now.
I'm glad you loved it.
Yeah, I really have to revisit that because I stopped at the first trade and I loved it. I just never went back.
It stays consistent through the end of the first volume in that it's very much the same kind of thing. And the Ryan Brown issues that he does about Oppenheimer's inner struggle in his brain, because I don't know, I forgot where the first volume ends, but let's just say that Oppenheimer has a lot going on up there in his head. They're excellent. And the rest of the art by Nick Pitarra is just stellar. And it's so interestingly detailed, but yet cartoony. I can't, I'm so glad you enjoyed it. It's a great book.
Pitarra's Einstein is so entertaining. Like as soon as they introduce him, he's just like, like mean-spirited and tough and, like, isolated to his cell, and I thought, like, whoa, this is a take on Einstein I was not expecting.
Okay. Well, if you want to wrap this one up, we can do that. You up for that, or is there anything?
Yeah.
Any last call? I guess that's appropriate for this show.
One last
You
call
don't
for
have to go
alcohol.
home, but you can't stay here.
Yeah. I'm glad that song isn't in constant rotation anymore. Woo.
Welding time.
Yeah. Okay. Woofs of the week. Let's go in the order that I'm seeing you on this new Skype call. So oddly, you guys have all reversed positions. So I'm going to, or maybe it's my vision. I will start with Justin. Justin, what is your Woof of the week?
My Woof of the week is going to Logo and RuPaul's Drag Race. It is the Runway to 100. They are touting it. It is a marathon beginning Thursday, March 3rd at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, and it will start with and I know you're just dying to see this, every RuPaul's Drag Race episode. And it leads up to the premiere of RuPaul Drag Race Season 8, Monday, March 7th at 9. So this is like a whole entire weekend thing where nobody will be doing anything but watching RuPaul and entering themselves in the Dragulator. And it even is including the Despicable All-Star season. So don't bother to disturb me that weekend. I will be in front of the TV watching Logo and RuPaul.
Okay. Steve, what is your Woof of the week?
Well, it may not be as fun and exciting for most people as, 72 straight hours of RuPaul, but this is for those of you who are interested in world history or, other countries, this is the 100th year since the 1916 uprising in Ireland that led to it becoming an independent country for the first time in 700 years. And to commemorate that, RTE, which is the RTE, which is the Irish National Network, has been running a lot of centennial TV series and retrospectives and documentaries. And my favorite so far is the series called 1916, which is narrated by Liam Neeson. And it's really interesting if you don't know anything about Irish history, or if you know some of Irish history, or if you just are really interested in seeing how the country came to be after 700 years as a British protectorate. It is definitely a fascinating watch with a lot of pictures, archives, film archives, and dramatic rereadings of some interesting stuff, including in the first episode the Declaration of the desire for independence. So it's very interesting and really cool. So if you're a history buff, or have some Irish roots, or just really like that kind of stuff, I recommend checking it out. I think most of it is available on YouTube as it airs in Ireland.
Steve, are you of Irish descent?
I've got a touch of the Irish. I've also got a touch of the Scottish and a touch of the Welsh. So
Wow.
if it's Celtic, I've probably got it in me.
Okay. There you
At
go.
work,
One man trip
or
around
have
the
had it in me, I guess.
one man trip around the conquered territories. There you go. Okay. Though my moniker is very confusing, I am actually a quarter Irish. Were you shocked?
Shocked.
Okay. Yeah. There you go.
Gadzooks.
Yeah. No, that's and it's like English Irish. It's like very like a lot from Liverpool and Manchester. Like there. So if you see my eyebrows, it's not a huge stretch to think I might be related to the Gallagher brothers from Oasis. You know, it's not a huge stretch. Anyone else got some Irish in him?
I have had some.
Oh, see what you did there. See what you did there. I think you've had some
Wouldn't
wine
mind
too.
that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Matt, how about you? What is your Woe of the Week?
I've got a couple of Kickstarter stuff. So I got my perk for donating to Frank Santoro and Kurt Ankeny, and I got this really cool handbook for making better comics. It's just sort of a little bit like the Understanding Comics, but just going over different kinds of layout styles and techniques and stuff. And there's a Kickstarter in progress called Hard to Swallow, 10 Years of Gay Male Comics. And it's by Justin Hall and Dave Davenport. There's 11 days to go. There's just a few $1,000s left of their goal to reach, so things are going well. And so, yeah, I want to promote that. So look for it on Kickstarter. Search for Hard to Swallow, 10 Years of Gay Male Comics.
Okay.
So looking forward to that. I really hope they hit their goal.
Mm-hmm. Brian, what is your Woe of the Week?
Oh Lord. I'm so glad you mentioned Hard to Swallow, because that would have been one of my woofs, because I'm very thrilled to help them keep gay comics coming out. But I will say we are very privileged over on the Flame On podcast side of the internet to have an episode that features a returning RuPaul drag queen. And I know a lot of you are like, who the fuck cares about RuPaul? But if you have never checked out our Drag is the New Spandex sort of part of Flame On, we feature geeky drag queens who have a history with comics, who have a history with theater, who are big old geeks in their own right. And the one and only Orlando-based Ginger Minge came back on our show after she was on like a year ago, I think right before season 7 of RuPaul's Drag Race, when she was, I believe, featured. She came back on to discuss all of her favorite memories from that taping and all of her adventures since. And she even dishes a little bit about the queens the new season of RuPaul. So if you are going to watch the RuPaul marathon of craziness, then great. But check out our Flame On podcast episode and listen to Ginger dish about all this RuPaul dirt before the new season starts, I believe in like 2 weeks. We're really glad to have her back, and she's hilarious, lots of fun, and that is, I think if you're into that, something you would be interested in.
That sounds fun.
Okay, for my Wolf of the Week, I've been hesitating on promoting this on our show, but I did want to let people know, this is like the pre-Wolf, that I am part of a new podcast with my friend Tito Gutierrez, the Tito and Bill Good Time Hour, and we have a new episode which is going to be released concurrently with this one, where we discuss our favorite books about music and musicians, and then the next episode is us talking about our experiences with the paranormal, which is not what you're going to think it is. So if you can, check that out. They are going to be available for the time being on the Earth 2 network feed. But I have popped a particular cherry. It hasn't popped yet, but I've put the money in so that it will. I am an anomaly among geeks of the present day in that I do not have a single Funko Pop vinyl yet. That will change as I have joined the DC Comics Legion of Collectors, which is one of those collectors box series. It's coming out directly from Funko. It's called, the Legion of Collectors. The first box will contain an exclusive armored Batman pop vinyl, and in each book there's a $50 value of contents for only $25 plus shipping and handling and taxes where applicable. I fucking hate unboxing videos, and I'll never make one, but I'll be happy to unbox what I get. You can go to the site there, legionofcollectors.com, and to sign up for the first box that closes, according to the website, in 12 days, 4 hours, 9 minutes, and 18 seconds. Now 17 seconds, now 16. I'm not going to keep doing that. But you can sign up and get stuff that's all DC oriented, and that's the box that's made for me. All right, well, we made it through Drunkpool. Oh boy, I haven't been in this state on the show in quite a while, and it's really been fun. And I just hope this is all recorded.
Well, it's certainly fun to listen to. Hey, Bill, before the DC Funko Pop thing reminded me that another collector series has actually been presented at a Funko Pop. Did anybody else see the Golden Girls advertised?
Yes. Yes. And
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that came out of Toy Fair. Yeah.
And this actually ties back into Deadpool because two things. Of course, right before the movie premiered, we had Betty White talking about how great it was and how fucking amazing it was. But also, did everybody notice the B. Arthur T-shirt?
Oh, yes.
Wilson was voting. Yeah.
Yeah, huh?
I had to point that out to Jason. I'm like, look.
All right, not again, I'm saying it for the first time. We are the Comic Book Bears, the Bears. We are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and Instagram as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. You can send us an email if you want to get in touch with us to comicbookbears@gmail.com. You can subscribe to us through the Earth 2 network on iTunes or through our own feed. You can also find us on Stitcher Radio. Reach out to us. We're all friendly.
Very
friendly. That's about it. Yeah. We
unlock private media on First Hello.
I didn't do that today, though. I shared with you guys. I got a like a message request, and it looked like a woman who took a picture of her daughter as the profile page. That's what I was getting, and the thing that she said in the message was hello. And I really felt like,
You didn't get one of those ones that starts with hi, dear?
Oh, I've gotten plenty of the hi, dear, but I haven't gotten a hello. And I really wanted to, counter with, like, I'm in California dreaming about the way. But I didn't do it. I just ignored. How do we get on that? Oh, good that we're friendly. Yeah, we are friendly. We are pretty friendly.
We're very friendly.
Yeah, I don't think any of us are assholes.
We'll come on to you if we're a little inebriated.
Oh, shit, yeah. I'll come on to you for some bacon. I don't,
Unless it's maple. I cannot do maple.
Oh, I cannot do maple either. Yeah, I fucking hate maple.
Maple bacon.
Oh, I fucking hate maple bacon.
Maple and bacon have no business consorting with each other.
Maple and bacon are the accident. No, maple and bacon are an accident.
No, that's East Canada.
That's a great image. Can I just say that?
Now there are good accidents, like you got your chocolate in my peanut butter. That's a good accident. The maple and bacon thing, I can't stand. I'm so with you there, Matt, and especially. All right, well, we're gonna wrap this one up for good. Until next week, I'm Billy Z.
I'm Justin Allen.
I'm Brian Pittard.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Matt Broussard.
You're going to hear an explosion and a woof? No, you're not. You're going to hear a woof and an explosion. I never get that right. I'm going to hear a woof and an explosion. Maybe 3 explosions. I did 3 explosions a couple weeks. It really worked well. And we'll be back next week. Take care, everyone.
Whoa! Come on. Let's do it. What it is. This is what it is. Another knocker. Kick this game around like soccer. Pull up
up a chair, let me make you a plate of this game that's seasoned like a tasty steak. 8 to 8, I've been serving them well. I was serving Yale when L was rocking bells. Clocking mail, getting it, copping it, flipping it, flipping it. Now I'm spitting it bar for bar. European whipping it, car for car. No doho, you know I say no. I need you like Jaws need a raincoat out the dango. Stay high as a star spangled. Choke the blood out your bitch, get strangled. Get mangled, fucking with this pimpin'. Hot as Lipton, Dre J. Simpson. You better pay attention, it's all gamed up. Keep the bio, the file. See how I came back. I've been out there getting my dough. In the Skoda O and Dolly Joe. Getting rich in the rich and San Ho. Grinding and pimpin' hoes. Rolling on boats and two foes. Dre tripper, gotta stay with two hoes. Stay with zippers, boy, I keep a few hoes. Get boss and say, dawg, when I say read my lips. Bring me cheddar, bitch, bring me chips. Fingertips, ass hips.